Hugo Chavez, Venezuela's president from 1999 until 2013. Loved by some, hated by others. He has been called a savior and a revolutionary, but also a dictator and a tyrant. Chavez's record is very mixed, including his rise to power. He first tried to take power violently and illegally in a military coup in 1992. Then he went on to win almost all the democratic elections until his death. A look at Chavez's rule is important, because it gives much insight into Venezuela's current crisis. This video will look at his achievements, his failures, and their connections to the economic crisis. His achievements. Chavez gave a voice to the descendants of the indigenous population and the African slaves. These people, the poor majority of the population, were always deliberately kept out of positions of power. Now with Chavez, who is of mixed African and indigenous descent, they took the presidency and got a voice in the political system. Under Chavez, satisfaction with democracy increased, although often referred to as a dictator in the Western media. According to the major Latin American polling agency, the Venezuelan people expressed an unusual increase in satisfaction with democracy after Chavez's first democratic victory in 1998. Throughout Chavez's presidency, Venezuela continued to rank at the top of countries in Latin America in terms of how satisfied its people are with the state of democracy in their country. Chavez implemented social programs aimed to benefit his supporters, which consisted of the poor majority of the population. Venezuela became one of 18 countries to reach the World Food Summit goal of reducing by half the absolute number of undernourished people, an achievement highly praised by the United Nations. The Human Development Index showed the sharpest increase during the Chavez period compared to any Latin American country, as can be seen by the red line representing Venezuela, compared to the blue line representing the rest of Latin America. This Human Development Index measures the standard of living and quality of health and education. Overall, these are great achievements. His failures. The tensions between Chavez's supporters, the so-called Chavistas, and the opposition increased. This opposition was organized primarily by the descendants of the local elites, who had lost political power after Chavez got elected president. It quickly led to conflicts, and over time Chavez took on a more authoritarian role. He ordered violent arrests and limited press freedom. Instead of reducing the tensions, these actions only increased the division. Chavez did not diversify and modernize the economy. Venezuela has one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and much of Venezuelan income is related to the oil industry. The blue line represents the size of Venezuela's economy, and the red line the price of oil. There exists a clear relationship between the two, illustrating the oil dependency of the economy. Being highly dependent on one resource is typical of third world economies, and it makes them very vulnerable. Chavez failed to significantly change this. To make matters worse, Chavez spent almost all the money his country earned during times of high oil prices on the social and internationalist programs. As can be seen by the black line, despite rising oil prices and a growing economy, Venezuela's financial reserves remain almost flat. As long as oil prices remain high, there is no problem. However, when oil prices go down, Venezuela's income declines. This would be fine when Venezuela has large financial reserves, but when the country has saved little, a financial crisis may follow. The last important factor relevant to Venezuela's current crisis is Chavez's relationship with the United States. Chavez represented a breach in the traditional structure of power. The descendants of the local elites who had dominated Venezuela's political system and the economy were the preferred allies of US businesses, investors, and politicians. They had always followed policies in line with US interests, including a shift to neoliberalism in the 1980s. Chavez, however, went directly against US power. Chavez reversed important aspects of the Apertura Petrolera, a set of policies implemented in the 1990s by a neoliberal government. These policies allowed foreign oil corporations to make large profits from Venezuelan oil. This included US giants such as ExxonMobil and Chevron. Under Chavez, the power and profit margins of these foreign oil corporations were reduced. Instead, a larger share of the profits from oil went to the social programs that Chavez and his supporters wished to implement. Also, Chavez did not accept the neoliberal economic policies the United States wanted Latin America to follow, and instead promoted an alternative, which he called 21st century socialism. He also countered Washington's plans to integrate the Americas within the context of US hegemony by opposing the free trade area of the Americas. Chavez did not support and tried to rally other countries against the US war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Overall, Chavez's legacy is mixed. Under his rule, social and economic conditions for much of the population improved. Satisfaction with democracy was relatively high. At the same time, the society became more divided and all groups, including Chavez, showed an ugly side. The economy remained fixed on one resource and is highly vulnerable. Small savings only made matters worse. And by challenging elite sectors in the United States, Chavez became an enemy in the eyes of US policymakers. The US quickly teamed up with the opposition and tried to bring him down. When Chavez died, Venezuela was divided, economically vulnerable, and had angered the world superpower. It had all the ingredients of a crisis in the making. Thank you for watching. Make sure to also check out the other videos in this video series about Venezuela. The next video series will be about the military-industrial complex in the United States. We will have a look at its origins, the way in which it operates, the connections to major US corporations, its involvement in technological development, but also how it undermines democracy and stimulates US foreign military interventions. I'm planning to make many more video series, for instance about free trade agreements, US foreign policy in the Middle East, petrodollar recycling, but also more general topics like the history of colonialism, neoliberalism, inequality and the nature of capitalism. Now, if you have another great topic in mind for another video series, please let me know in the comment section. If you like this video and you want to help out this channel, please hit the like button or subscribe. I hope to see you next time.